I think, to add to that is to not discount the role as materialist science has become increasingly the only way to define reality, that as science further and further pushes religion away from having any way of contributing of how we define reality, of how we define life, that along with that is that no longer is there any concept of sin. So those things that are sinful now either are pathologized or they just come under some type of diagnostic rubric. And because there's no empirical evidence for sin, as if like, well, in order for sin to exist, it would have to be tied to some type of pathological agent like a bacteria or a virus. And because that cannot be substantiated, empirically, then those things that were once upon a time sinful are no longer sinful. And I think homosexuality is just the most clumsy example of that. And so, once you have that kind of trickle down from the high level, scientists, and now that kind of gets dispersed almost like an aerosol agent through the education system, through the entertainment system, so where, kids are now, or not even just kids. I mean, I think that's why we see even adults getting inoculated with, alhamdulillah, we thought Thanos had snapped his fingers. Instead, alhamdulillah, you're back. You may be nervous. I'll start to check, man. I'm about to turn into some dust. No, I think that, I think that's why we see the entire society, from adults to children, getting a kind of double inoculation, right? They're getting the inoculation from the scientific point of view, which continually reshapes important aspects of society. And then we see them getting inoculated from, as Imam Dawood talked about, like the Hollywood entertainment side. And that's why we're not just seeing young people being influenced by this. We're seeing, I'm seeing, let's just keep it real. I'm seeing Muslims that I've known. I've been Muslim for 30 years. I've seen Muslims that I've known for almost 30 years. That for the first 20 years that I knew them, they were, as we would say, thabit. Like they were solid on their deen individuals that held to what we would just call, Muslim normativity on a variety of issues. Suddenly, it's not that I think that, not that I don't think that homosexuality is wrong, but they should have this and this and this. And, and then next thing you know, the verse should actually be interpreted as this. And, there's nothing wrong with having the feelings, the feelings are okay. It's only if you act on it, even though clearly if you read the verses that talk about it, it talks about shahwatan, right? It talks about, right, you approach men as you should approach women, with the shahwa, not only the fi'l, not only the deed. And so I think that we're seeing just this huge, double inoculation of society, and it's framed in such a way that one has more fear of being homophobic. One has more shame of being against homosexuality than one does worshiping idols, right? Yeah. And especially for our kids, when they go into school, when they go into university, when they go into public, and they're very adept at psychologically making them feel horrible for holding these attitudes and opinions. In the same way, I would say that the average white person today, the vast majority of white people today, would rather worship an idol than to be labeled a racist. Like that's just, I cannot, as the average white person has been so, and again, obviously racism is abhorrent. We don't say that it's not abhorrent, but it's sort of like, this will cost me my soul. And it's been articulated in this way that and just talking with young, we've done a youth group at Middle Ground. And so I talk with kids that are, especially by the time they get into the junior high school age, right? Where they're starting to, awaken into adulthood, and they're starting to come into contact with all these things, and inevitably, obviously, coming into contact with non-Muslims, or particularly if they go to public school, that they, like they'll sit there in class, like with their heads down, like, I know that it's wrong, but it's like you can see this internal struggle where it's like, but they seem like such nice people. I feel like I am being, there's some language I can't use that they've used in the, in the youth group that I won't use here, but I feel like a certain so-and-so for even holding these feelings, even though I know that this is what Allah has said and has revealed, and this is what his messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, has said. And like they feel this constriction of the chest emotionally and psychologically to hold on to these ideals, right? To hold on to these moral strictures.